This is the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with your host, Vicki Davis.
Today's sponsor is Modern Classrooms Project. Today we're sharing about the scholarships for their virtual mentorship program and other amazing opportunities to bring student-centered, self-directed learning to your classroom.
Today we're talking with Rob Donatelli. He is a 13-year educator, native business educator at Dallastown Area High School in York, Pennsylvania. He's author of A Teacher's Quest. He blogs, he's a speaker, and does a lot of really cool things. But today, Rob, we're going to talk about 5 ways to rejuvenate and rediscover yourself as an educator. So where are we as educators?
Well, thanks again, Vicki, for having me on again. It's always a pleasure. The job's always been a very rewarding job, but it's also a very challenging job, and it's demanding. Ever since the pandemic, I'm sure you felt this way as well, but there's a lot of changes. There was a lot of things that we were trying to do and build that kind of airplane in the air and fix things. And so as educators, we're always making so many decisions. And we're trying to help our families be successful. We're trying to take care of ourselves. It is not uncommon. We're around day 100 right now for people to just feel kind of burnt out in February and March. And that flame starts to flicker towards the second part of the year.
And it can be challenging. This is year 23 for me. And there's some common things that I've kind of started learning. Okay, this is typical how I might feel this time of year, but you have an acrostic called Quest that is part of your awesome story that you've created. What are these 5 ways that we can kind of get rejuvenated?
Quest is an acronym for to question, understand, explore, solutions, and test. And just to give a little teaser, Kelly Baker is the main character, has no reference to anyone I work with. I just picked a name that I thought sounded good for a fable. But she's just a 12-year veteran teacher, English teacher. And, it's day 100 of the school year. The snow's fluttering down. She's sipping her coffee. And she's just starting to question things. She's been teaching 12 years at a high school, English, and she's starting to ask, like a lot of people do, is this it? Am I meant to be here for the next 15, 20, 25 years? So she ends up being at the grocery store on a Saturday with her children and runs into her former professor at a university, Dr. Grandin. They're so excited to see each other, and he really inspired her to go into education. So he invites her to come back to the university to grab a cup of coffee and catch up. And she sits down with him and kind of just pours it out that she's struggling with some things personally. She's struggling, just some things at school. Not that her life's bad or anything, but just those normal feelings. And so he invites her to go on Quest, and she kind of like mocks him and says, "What am I, 7 years old at Quest?" But it's a very practical tool that we can take to, again, question where we are in life, understand it, look and explore solutions, and then test them. So I'd love to, share how we can apply each of those quickly if you'd like me to.
Let's do that. Because, these are not just questions you would ask as a teacher. It's a question you ask about any role you might have in life. It is not a bad thing to question. Honestly, last year, I probably came as close as ever to no longer being a teacher. A lot of different reasons, but I was going through those questions. And actually, probably what kept me in teaching is a student who made me his star teacher. And it happened as a surprise, and I didn't really know what to say. Everybody's like, talk about how great it is to be a teacher. And I'm sitting there thinking in my head, okay, if you'd asked me any other year but this year, I would have given you a great speech. But right now I'm speechless, right? But by the time he had his 3rd thing, which was, the state, I was feeling it again. So it sounds like it's a process. Take us through that, Rob.
Sure. We live such busy lives. As you said, Vicki, it's so important sometimes just step back and question where we are. The first part of Quest is just asking yourself some questions like, are you currently on a scale of 1 to 10? How happy are you where you're at with your job? Like, what are some things that you're liking that you're doing right now? What are some things that you're not liking right now? Do you feel valued at your school or your workplace? I think that's a huge one. And what's the culture like at your workplace? Do you feel connected to people? Do you feel disconnected? I have a whole list here of different things that we can ask. And then, in our personal lives, how happy are we with our lives outside of work? We, as educators, and I'm saying this from an educator standpoint, if we give 110% to education, but we don't have hobbies, we don't make time for friends, we don't make time for family, we don't make time for religion, church, whatever that may be, we're going to get burnt out. Those are the things that fuel us up to give so much back. Just ask yourself, am I doing any hobbies right now? Like, what's something fun I could be doing? Do I go out on a date night with my spouse? Do I have a relationship with God? Am I going to church if that's something that you believe in? So, well, I think when we question and we ask some of those tough questions, and there's models out there, the Wheel of Life is something that is awesome. If anybody wants to look up and do this, in like 3 minutes, it's just a wheel and it asks you 8 categories, kind of just about your life and where you rank, where you fall on a scale of 1 to 10, and like finances, your health, your job, things like that. So that allows us to paint a picture, right? When we really reflect on question and understanding, we can say, this is where I'm at right now. Some of it's messy, some of it's really good. And I think that opens the door to explore, what it is that we want to do. So, and then, change is never going to happen in a day, in a week. It takes small disciplines day in and day out. So when we take time then to explore and take those solutions that we want to improve about ourselves and question, and then test them, I think we learn a lot about ourselves. The thing that I want to leave people with is you're never stuck. So life is certainly a journey. It's not a destination. And if you feel just burnt out, if you feel stuck, and maybe this is some harsh wisdom, but it's up to you to figure out and test those solutions and go question things about yourself. Maybe if you're feeling like you're burnt out in a sense, what do you do? Ask yourself, what am I doing differently? Where am I, exploring new technologies, new tools, new lessons? Am I trying AI? Yeah, I went out to dinner with a friend in over 2 months. Call somebody up and try to go out to dinner and, reconnect with those relationships. So we're never stuck, especially as teachers. I know sometimes in education we get into it, we feel like this is the only thing we're ever going to do. But whether you decide and you choose to stay as an educator, which I love doing, it's a super rewarding profession, but super challenging. And we all question it from time to time, whether we're doing the right thing, or you're in a job in a workplace. Now, there's always things that you can do to just, change life up, and explore different ways to approach life a little differently. So
we need to question, we need to understand, we need to explore options, we need to look at solutions and then test those solutions. And I know for me, interesting, and I'm just going to relate this to this, sometimes people fall in different categories. They might change jobs a lot because they always think there's something better, right? And when I think of that, I think of the study that just came out about the transfer portal in college basketball, and basically found that when you transfer, you don't play anymore and you don't really have that much difference. So it's not really making that much of a difference. There are times to change a job, but probably not all the time. Because when you go to a new job and you have the same problems you had before, you finally have to realize that, okay, maybe this is something I need to learn to do differently. But there is a time where you do have to change. I mean, I've been at 2 different schools, and sometimes you do need to change. If I hadn't changed schools, I would have been out of the profession because that's just where I was, I think it's healthy, don't you think, Rob, to ask questions?
Absolutely. I could cite 5 examples, and I'm not going to for time, but I'll just share one. The gentleman in our department, in our business department, he was a phys ed and health teacher for 12 years with 4th and 5th graders, and he was just like, I need a change. He loved business. He had a passion for it. He asked himself some tough questions. We had an opening 2 years ago, and he is so happy that he made that change. So it's not always, hey, you got to get out of education, like you said.
Yeah.
So I always like this quote: "The grass is always, not always, but mostly greener where we water it." Right. So
That's right.
where we choose to focus and try to improve things, a lot of times it's a little bit greener. But maybe it's even just changing, going from the high school to the middle school. Maybe
Yeah.
it's going from elementary to the high school. Maybe it's going from teaching XYZ to a curriculum director. Like, change is healthy, change is good. And I wish sometimes in education there was more options, I guess, for opportunities for teachers to change. It's that's part of the job. But like you said, it's very healthy to ask those questions and to talk to people about it. And there's, I don't know if anybody needs to hear this, but if you're really struggling with your profession in any way, there's life coaches out there that are willing to sit down and just, it's not a therapist, but somebody just like, this is where you are. Let's talk through it. Let's have some great conversations and ask those questions and try to come up with some solutions. So,
And what's the poem? What are you going to do with your one wild and beautiful life?
I've heard that.
And people aren't going to ask those questions for you. You have to ask them yourself. You want to live life intentionally. You don't want to come to the end of it and realize you were trying to just please other people. It's okay. There's, as I tell my students, there's seasons and reasons, and it's okay to shift and do things a little bit differently sometimes, and to ask these questions. I think this is a really healthy conversation. I will say that there's certain times of the year I've learned not to make decisions. Like May,
Yeah.
but because, the last day of school and you go into post planning and everybody wants to talk about dress code and event, and you're just like, no, it's like, seriously, no, like, I don't want to do this. But it's really healthy. And I think Quest is a great way to look at it. So the book is A Teacher's Quest, a Fable Story by Rob Donatelli. Rob, thanks for sharing the story and asking some good questions that we all need to be asking.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vicki, for your time.
Modern Classrooms Project helps teachers bring engaging, exciting teaching to their classroom. They have a free online course and community you can join at coolcatteacher.com/modern. But today, I'm excited to share their scholarships for fully funded enrollment in their virtual mentorship program and other benefits. So go to coolcatteacher.com/open to see scholarships for special education, ELL educators, schools, districts, and more for a life-changing professional development experience to improve your classroom. So check out the Modern Classrooms Project and their many resources. Go to coolcatteacher.com/open to apply for some amazing, fully funded learning opportunities with Modern Classrooms Project.
You've been listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. If you want more content from Vicki Davis, you can find her on Facebook, X.com, TikTok, Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Cool Cat Teacher. Thank you for listening.